Hello guys, welcome back. And today we're going to be talking about the Chicago Blackhawks and who they pick third overall, Bowen Byram or Alex Turcotte. Now we all know that Jack Hughes and Kakko will be the top two picks in the 2019 NHL draft, but who gets picked third by the Chicago Blackhawks, Bowen Byram or Alex Turcotte? Watch till the end to find out. Now, while the top two picks in this NHL draft are pretty much decided between Jack Hughes and Kakko, after that, the draft pretty much opens up quite a bit. And the Chicago Blackhawks, who have the third overall pick, have a chance to change the draft completely from that point on. The chances of Jack Hughes or Kakko slipping down the Chicago Blackhawks are pretty much non-existent. But the good news for the Chicago Blackhawks is that after those top two picks, there's a lot of different options to choose from, and a lot of different good options that could fit very well in that Chicago franchise. Now the fact is, in Chicago's current rebuild, as is right now, they need a lot of different things. Offense, defense, goaltending, you name it, Chicago needs to fill those holes, and with this third overall pick, that's a great chance to do something like that. Whether it's for defenseman or a forward, Chicago does need help, and this third overall pick could help that quite a bit. Now for the Chicago Blackhawks, there's realistically 4 or 5 players that could be picked number 3 by them, but I think right now it's down to 2 different players, and you guessed it, it's Alex Turcotte and Bowen Byram. I think those 2 players are the 2 that Chicago is heavily looking at right now, and the 2 players that they've dialed in up to this point. Honestly, at number 3, the third overall pick, you couldn't go wrong with either of these 2 players, Alex Turcotte or Bowen Byram. When it comes to my personal rankings, both of those are in my top 4. I think they're both fantastic players, and Chicago, I think, is being smart in picking one of those 2 guys. But when it comes to the decision, finally, that is a very tough one, since both players are so good and have so much hype behind them. Out of the 2 players, Byram and Turcotte, who is really the better fit for the Chicago Blackhawks? And that's a tough question, since both players are magnificent. Both players would fix a lot of different problems on the Chicago Blackhawks. But we'll start to talk about Alex Turcotte and what he brings. Now, he is at age 18. He's American, a center. He's 5'11", 185 pounds, and he grew up in Illinois. So he was likely a hometown kid, likely a Blackhawks fan growing up. And that's a great story that the Chicago Blackhawks could definitely use right now. He had a very successful USDP season when he was finally healthy back in November, and he just exploded after that. In the USDP, he played 37 games, getting 27 goals, 35 assists for 62 points. Against the USHL, he played 16 games, getting 12 goals, 22 assists for 34 points. In the U18 World Juniors with Team USA, he played 7 games, getting 4 goals, 5 assists for 9 points. And overall, when he was healthy, Turcotte was fantastic, and in my opinion, one of the best forwards in this draft. He has to be. Even an American, he was a fantastic alongside guys like Jack Hughes, Matthew Boldy, and some other great teammates in USA. But he stood out alone from himself, which is very impressive on a team that's pretty much as stacked as you could possibly imagine. And when it comes to Alex Turcotte, he's definitely in my top 4 when it comes to my prospect rankings. I think he would be an excellent fit on Chicago, and the offense is certainly there to possibly be a first-line center in the future. Moving over to Bowen Byram, who has had success in much different ways. He's a 17-year-old defenseman. He's 6 foot, 194 pounds. Being from Canada, while he's not that homegrown kid, he doesn't have that story to him. He's a fantastic player and showed that in the WHL this season. Now, in the WHL with the Vancouver Giants, he played 67 games in the regular season, getting 26 goals, 45 assists for 71 points. In the playoffs, he stepped into an even higher gear, playing 22 games, getting 8 goals, 18 assists for 26 points. As a 17-year-old, you really can't get much better, especially as a defenseman. He was dominant throughout the whole season with Vancouver. While they are a very solid team, Bowen Byram was one of the main reasons why. He was fantastic offensively, defensively, and if he's picked by Chicago, will be their defenseman of the future. With both players being absolutely fantastic and dominating their respective leagues and at different positions, Turcotte being a center and Byram being a defenseman, the question does become, does Chicago go for best player available, or do they go for positional need? And that's what's so interesting about this pick, is that Chicago could go either way. They're in the rebuild state, but they're kind of going out of it just a little bit. Some of their prospects are continuing to graduate, and that could be important for them, but it's really important to feel how this is going to go, because it's probably going to be a different player if they go for positional need or if they go for best player available. And that's the thing we need to focus on, because with Chicago, that's basically what makes or break this potential pick. For the Chicago Blackhawks, while going by position might be more useful down the line, I just think right now when they're in that rebuild phase, it just does not make sense for them to go by position. And again, I can see how it makes more sense for contending teams that have those obvious flaws they could fix down the line. I think for Chicago, they're in this rebuild phase. They got a lot of different weaknesses as before. I think going by best player available and going with that at the 3rd overall pick is going to be the best decision for them and the best one down the line. Now, even if Chicago does go for best player available, it still isn't exactly clear whether that is Alex Turcotte or Bowen Byram. When it comes to my personal opinion, I think Alex Turcotte will be the wise decision. I think he is just barely the better player, but it's not by this big margin or anything. Bowen Byram is a fantastic player too, and if Chicago wants to go for that defenseman to fill out the defense core, I honestly wouldn't even blame them at that point. The thing is, Chicago can kind of go with a best player available / positional need kind of hybrid here. Because let's say Alex Turcotte and Bowen Byram are kind of tied in talent level, and they both deserve to be the 3rd overall pick. If it's tied, then at that point Chicago can say, yes, we can go by position, and that does affect things. When it's so close like this, in my opinion, when it's so close between these two guys, I think it's fair at that point to go by positional need, and that's where it comes down to it. And this is where even more questions come into place, but this is where it gets a little bit more clear in my opinion. When it comes to the 4 groups on both sides of the ice for Chicago, offensively and defensively, I think there's a much clearer need to get that top 4 prospect than that top defensive prospect. And when we look towards Chicago's own prospect pool, I think that is the case. Let's just look at the defensive side for right now. The top 2 guys being Adam Boqvist and Henry Jokiharju. I think both those guys can be top 2 defensemen in the future and likely will be that. So when it comes to Chicago needing that top high-end defenseman, I don't think that's as much of a need right now for them as that first-line center of the future. Now, when we look at the forward side of the prospect pool, that's where it starts to get a little bit more weak. The top prospect in the forward group, I would say, is Dylan Sekura. I'm a pretty big fan of him, but he's not going to be this first-line guy that commands a power play and commands a team. There are some more underrated prospects in that forward group, but no guys that jump out to you as immediate top 6 guys. But Alex Turcotte can be that guy. And if they do pick Alex Turcotte, that'd be huge for not just replenishing that whole prospect core, but actually replenishing and pretty much fueling that forward core. And in the future, likely being that first-line guy and first-line center for the Chicago Blackhawks. And in my opinion, Alex Turcotte, I think, is a little bit more of a need for the Chicago Blackhawks than defense. And it's kind of weird because Chicago's offense was amazing this season. The defense was terrible, but I still think they should go Alex Turcotte because the offense might not be there in a few years' time. While the offense was great for the Chicago Blackhawks this year, I'm really not sure how much longer that'll last. It was an amazing season by Patrick Kane, a very solid up-and-coming season by Taves, but I don't think it's going to last for either of those two guys, and they have to look towards the future, and they have to look towards getting another superstar to fill out that forward core. And while obviously Dylan Strome and DeBrincat were fantastic that season, I'm not sure if that will even continue for them. So they got to look for a more consistent, obvious, long-term option, and for the consistent first-line center that the guy can bring, Alex Turcotte has those tools and will likely be that type of player at the NHL level. If I was the Chicago Blackhawks, if I was a Blackhawks fan too, I would be pretty comfortable with having Boqvist and Jokiharju as your top 2 defensemen in the future. That's pretty friggin' good, and it's much better than a lot of other teams are capable of bringing out prospect-wise right now. And while bringing out a guy like Bowen Byram on that defense, having that insane top 3 would be very, very nasty for them. I feel like having that first-line center that can be that first-line center offensively and defensively is a little bit more important than having that stacked top 3. And I get it that you love at that top 3 of Byram, Jokiharju, and Boqvist. That would be awesome to see, but I feel like for the first line center of the future, having that secured, having that prospect that can be that is much more of a priority for the Chicago Blackhawks and should be their highest priority. Now, even if the Chicago Blackhawks draft Turcotte with a 3rd overall pick, there's still some excellent chance for them to get some amazing defensemen in the later rounds, especially early in the 2nd round, where there's some defensemen that could be very solid for them. Maybe they go for a guy like Mikko Kakkonen, who could be a potential top 4 defenseman in the future. That could work out pretty well for them. If they draft Turcotte 3rd overall, that'd be great, as he's probably going to be the next first-line center for them. While Bowen Byram is the best defenseman in this draft, he's not the only defenseman in this draft, and Chicago in the past has proved themselves as a team that can get late-round steals. defense. And we also got to put into account how much either player could affect the Chicago Blackhawks franchise in a good way. When it comes to Bowen Byram, yes, he would affect that defense quite a lot for the better. He'd likely be the first guy on that defense. He wouldn't affect that defense nearly as much as Alex Turcotte would affect that forward group. And I finally have that opinion. When it comes to Alex Turcotte, once guys like Kane and Taves, the old guard, are starting to finally slow down production-wise, Alex Turcotte will be in his prime. He'll be putting up points. Once he gets minutes, he'll likely be the first-line center on that team and will be the next face of the franchise for that Chicago Blackhawks team. When it comes to Bowen Byram, while he'll be the next guy on that defense to lead that team to the promised land, I still don't think he would affect them as much as Alex Turcotte would for the better. And I think Chicago knows that. When it comes to their forward group, I still think it is in need of some fantastic prospects, and Alex Turcotte is that guy. And in my opinion, I think the Chicago Blackhawks will take Alex Turcotte with the 3rd overall pick. While there's some amazing options, like guys like Bowen Byram, like guys like Dylan Cousins, the Graviteh, some other options around then, I think Alex Turcotte is their guy. He's a homegrown kid from Illinois, a Blackhawks fan. Growing up, he will be the first-line center on that team eventually. He has the potential, and he has the tools to do it. I think the Chicago Blackhawks realize that. While Bowen Byram will be an excellent add to have, I'm not sure if Chicago needs him as much as they do Alex Turcotte. But of course, with this video, I want to hear your guys' thoughts down in the comments down below. So, let me know, what do you think about the Bowen Byram versus Alex Turcotte debate? Who do you think is the better fit for the Chicago Blackhawks? And ultimately, who do you think the Chicago Blackhawks will draft 3rd overall? But if you guys want some more Grav videos just like this one, you can click on this card right here to watch my video with Kakko and if he's actually going to go 1st overall. But that'll be it for today, guys. If you guys did enjoy, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you haven't already. Again, comment down below your thoughts on the Turcotte versus Bowen Byram debate and who you think the Chicago Blackhawks will draft 3rd overall. And I'll see you guys in the next video or stream. Goodbye.